I'd like to now call upon Mr. Ron Thomas, again, the rock star in HR. All of us know him. Needs very little introduction, but having said that, I'd like to say that Ron Thomas is the managing director of the Strategy Focus Group, an international consulting firm based in Dubai and Singapore. He's a visiting executive faculty member at the Global Human Resources Leadership Institute at Howard University School of Business in Washington, D.C., certified at Leadership Architect by Korn Ferry as well. Ron has been the former CEO of Great Place to Work, Gulf, and the CHRO of Araha Group based in Riyadh. And I know he was also part of the famous Martha Stewart team heading HR as well. Without much ado, I'd like to invite Ron Thomas to take the stage, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay, that Martha Stewart reference kind of like, whoa, took me back for a minute. That was a while ago. I had dinner with her when she was in Dubai back in, I think, November. Everyone at the office always said I was teacher's pet, kind of, so you know what that is. So thank you everyone for coming out to our session today. I was trying to think, the last time that I had at the session was, we all know it was pre-COVID, which kind of disrupted everything, but it's good to be back. So this session is about all of us. I am a very, very passionate believer in the power of what you do, what we do. We bring solutions to organizations. And you have to believe that. When I talk with the CEOs, you know, the big shots, I tell them the most important department you have in your organization is human resources. So sometimes I get that CEO look, like, what are you talking about? But this is what I mean by that. And this is what I'll cover, is that with all the disruption that's going on in business, strategy shifting, new business models, and it goes on and on and on, the only people that are going to be able to solve that is us. Because we're people experts. We provide people solutions inside of the organization. But in a lot of cases, we have to believe that, you know. It's okay for me to say it or you to think that. Can you sell that inside of your organization? And my topics today, the few slides I have, will center around that. How do we change the brand of 2 letters, HR, to a strategic advisor? To sit in the big room and look at business challenges and provide human capital solutions, because the strategic people can design all of this stuff, but you're going to have to put the people strategy together. And that's the cool part of don't you love technology? It's called The Future of Work Through the Prism of HR Capabilities. So what I mean by that is that, are we capable of providing that support? And the thing I want you to remember post-session, my euphemism is Monday morning approach. If you ever take any kind of learning, you have to embed it into Monday morning and beyond, 70-20-10. But my 70-20-10 is different. This is 10. What's going to be your 20 at the end of this session? Which means I'm going to identify something and I'm going to work on something. And that's the 70. And when you finish that, you're not done because you go back again. What's the 20? You're needed to solve people's strategies inside of organizations. That's what we do. We're the people expert. If the organization comes up with a new product, they go to marketing and say, marketing, create a strategy. Finance, give me some budget and give me some numbers behind that. What are we projecting? What is the predictive analytics for numbers? And then we're sitting there, what do we do? Here's a story that I encountered last week. I'm a judge on a summit that's coming up in Dubai, and as well as the Tiara Awards for the recruiting summit, for the recruiting professionals. But here's what I always look for. What is the evidence-based approach? Because when I looked at the submittals, there was no evidence. So imagine a CFO is going to give you a strategic approach to a new business model, a strategy shift, or whatever it is, and it goes on and on. Percentages, numbers, and trends, and they just go through all of it. And when I've read through the submittals, we're the best because we're the best, because everybody says we're the best, and because of the best. What are the numbers behind that? We have to become driven towards an evidence-based approach in finding solutions. I call it the big room. The big room is looking for solutions. They're not looking for the most part, project expertise. They're looking for solutions. How can we dig deep and find solutions to whatever this challenge is? And my session, oh, there it is. See, I figured something new. If you do it this way, for the next speakers, you got to do it behind you and it'll work. I love this slide. Isn't that a beautiful slide? But here's the challenge with that. The work I do is global, for the most part. Every week I'm in a different country. But when I ask my people, all of us, what is this? Can you give me 3, 2, or 1? I get the HR look. You know what the HR look is? I don't really know. Can you define what this is? Because you, all of us, are the people that's going to create this. And if we create this properly, going through our approaches, this happens. But in a lot of cases, we have not sold the so-called C-suite, the big room, the big shots, that we're capable of doing this. And that's going to be the challenge. And as every speaker comes before you today, I want you to take a lot of notes. I want you to think about your 20. This is 10. Your 20. And the 70 comes on Monday. So if I were to see you 3 months later, so these conferences, we always run into each other, you know, and I'll always say, okay, what was your 20? What did you work on? If you give me the HR look, you're not my friend anymore. I'm walking away. Because the C-suite is looking for solutions. They're cool on strategy, they're cool on market shifts, they're cool on external pressures, but here's what we are. Here's the role that we play, which is right here. And we have to realize, we have to understand what this is, and we have to design a strategy to make sure this happens and we increase. Now, does this mean 100% success? No, but what it does mean, it increases the probability of success. Because we've done strategic workforce planning, we've done strategic change management, we've done strategic talent acquisition, and it goes on and on. No one else does that. We're the only people inside of any organization that have the skills to do that. And we have to upskill in every one of these areas. We have to understand what change management is about. We have to understand how to design a workforce based on this. One of the slides I have coming up in a bit talks through workforce architect. So when I was traveling a lot, but this is pre-COVID, and I'd sit next to the so-called big shots on the flight, and you know, they always say, what do you do? I said, I'm a workforce architect. I do that for a reason, because I'm consistently selling what we do. I said, I've never heard of a workforce architect. I said, you have them employed in your company. You have an entire department of workforce architects. I said, no, I think I know what we have. I said, you have a human resource department? Yes, okay. Workforce architects. So you can imagine the response I get from that. Please, give me a break. So I said, okay, tell me, can marketing design and find the strategic roles you need to get you from here to here? Will they be able to design job descriptions, understanding competencies that are needed, all these kinds of things? Can marketing, finance do that? No. Workforce architect. And that's the concept. But that means understanding what's threatening from here to here. So the key concept is to think of yourselves first as business people. But your specialty just happens to be human resources. I can finance business people, but they're specialist finance. Marketing people, business people, finance. And we have to get away from just concentrating on just the processes and the penalties. If you do this, I'll do this. No. Guide the workforce, drive them into the future, current state, future state. But what do I know? What's the external pressures of the organization? What is the internal pressures of the organization? If you're an HRBP, if you're embedded inside of finance, marketing, whatever it is, whichever department function, what is the major challenge that that function is facing? And what is your role in solving that? Remember, we are people experts. And we have to sell that brand inside of our organizations. So what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for the organization, as well as the function we're in? If I'm in marketing, marketing may say, our weakness is the social marketing. We have to, social marketing, SEO, all those kinds of underpinnings of the new marketing. And we've got to build out an approach to do that. That is our role. See, the key is they can't go to finance for that because finance doesn't have a clue. The same as they were to bring you in and talk, and they were asked you to figure out EBITDA. You don't have a clue. It's the same thing. And we have to realize that, but you know what? We have to sell it. Every industry today is struggling with transformation. Here to here. Here's the gap. Workforce architects. How do you design it? What is it going to look like? What is the model going to look like in order to get from here to here? I did work for a bank in Singapore, and they were going from on the corner, branches, to cloud. Totally different workforce. What are the strategic roles? What is the comp level of those strategic roles? Because we're a legacy organization, we have certain rigid kind of compensation schemes. How are we going to compete? Who are our competitors? Who are our competitors hiring? What is the employee experience what is the candidate experience if I were to apply for that job at my company versus applying for the job at one of my competitors? We have to compete. What does the employee experience look like? We have to become, I'm going to use a term, and this term was given to me from the former CEO for our television division at Martha Stewart. She said, your group are diagnosticians. I had to go look it up. I'm not that bright of a fellow. I didn't know what diagnosticians meant. But we diagnose the problem because, you know, I don't know whether you know the story, but after Martha went to jail, we had to lay off 230 people in TV. We diagnosed that, and we came up with a solution. You and I were talking about that this morning. From to, do you have a plan? Can you begin the steps of designing a workforce and you become that workforce architect? We deserve to be in the big room. That's my euphemism for the conference room where all of the from-tos are being discussed. Think of it this way. Finance is there, marketing is there, IT is there, operations is there. Are we there? Maybe, maybe not. But we have to be able to provide the people solutions and let them understand the concept of the architects. We are architects. We design people solutions to strategy. If that's your anchor, even if you're just starting out in human resources, I've been doing this for close to 20 years, but that's the concept. Because COVID has kind of advanced this entire process, and this is what we're moving towards. We deserve this. We deserve being here, but can we provide the solutions? So here's headlines. Here's business headlines. Volvo reinvented itself. Chipotle opened digital restaurants. Vietnam, VinFast is to build a $2 billion vehicle factory in the U.S. Vin Group in Vietnam is one of my clients. And when I spoke to them, I did a couple of workshops with them, 8 verticals. How many of those do you think were run by women out of 8 verticals? How many women were running those 8 verticals? How many do you think? This always kind of throws people off. How many?
8.
Oh, you would say 8. 6 were female leaders. VinFast just moved into the U.S., and at the signing ceremony, there was a woman sitting there. What is your DEI strategy? What is your gender breakdown? What is your gender strategy? Finance can't do that. Technology can't do that. We've got to do every one of these are situations that organizations will face. GE breaks from 140 companies to 3 verticals. It's a lot of OD. How do we begin thinking through that? This is the most important. If we ever do a historical perspective on this body of work that we do, this is the most exciting time ever to be in human resources. Because we're solution providers. We can come in, and regardless of what these big shots are saying, we can provide people solutions. Don't ever listen to them. You just provide the solutions, and you have to be evidence-based. Because when you provide the solution, your brand value for you as well as your department goes up. And then when they're facing something, they say, you know what, we need to call the HR team in because this is what they do. How many times does that happen now? Maybe not enough. Workforce architect, design a variety of future state organizational models with dynamic data-driven insights, collaboration with stakeholders. This is what you do. No one else has the skills to do that. But we have to sell it. If you think of the branding, marketing approach, if you had to rebrand HR, you brand HR to do this. But again, that has to be sold inside of an organization. So how do we stay abreast of what's happening? Here's a thought. We have to read more. We register on all the key sites, all these things, because we have to make it happen. And the solutions we provide are qualitative, quantitative analysis. When I left Martha Stewart, I worked for Xerox, and I headed up one of their consulting practices. And it was different coming from embedded to consulting with people like yourselves. But one of the things we found out, which I already kind of know, qualitative, quantitative. Who did you talk to? What surveys? Who did you analyze the C-suite? What numbers what is the evidence behind your solution? If you provide a solution and you don't have evidence, you know what that's called? Guessing. You're just guessing. You have no clue as to whether that's going to work. But if I provide you evidence, and I could probably go into predictive modeling kind of approach, if this continues to happen, here's the trend, probably within the next period, here's where it's going to be. So the profession has changed. All of this, business strategy competencies, analytic approach, consulting model, change management, talent acquisition, succession planning, on and all of this. These are skills we're going to have. So maybe you don't have it, but choose one and you become an expert in that. YouTube, LinkedIn Learning, or if your company has the budget, you can always send them out and get training to do that. But we're going to have to upskill because we have to offer solutions. We're the only ones inside of an organization can offer people solutions. You have to think of that and believe that. There's no one else. Call up IT and have them to come in and do a strategic workforce plan on this new business model. IT can handle it, sure. Not going to happen. But in a lot of cases, that means that we're going to have to be able to provide the strategic workforce planning model. What does that look like? Workforce of tomorrow, I don't know why that doesn't come in. Okay, that didn't translate over. Okay, but the impact of all of these is going to have a detrimental impact. What does the workforce of tomorrow look like? That's not the full slide. Didn't translate over. But what is the workforce of tomorrow going to look like? Architects design it. Upskilling approach, learning and development. Strategic workforce plan, strategic roles. Marketing shift, knowledge from state to state. What is that going to look like? What skills are they going to need? All of these. This was a PwC survey done in August. Here's the top workforce priorities for CHROs. Org culture. Can we design that? Can we advise the C-suite that they play a role in designing org structure and it's not an HR thing? Don't come to me and tell me about putting together a culture when you're not exhibiting the behavior that's needed. Hybrid workforce. Apple said, we want everybody to come back in on Mondays and Wednesdays because we feel that's the best day. Employees said, not going to happen. And they rebel. The workforce is different. It's not your parents' workforce. They will just not accept what you say because they can leave. They get the CVs polished up and they walk away. If you don't offer flexibility, they're going to leave. So you've got external pressures, you've got internal pressures. Everyone in this room is responsible for driving org solutions through people's strategies. All of these. Every person, 42% of their current skills is going to have to change. 1.5 years, this is again from PwC, year later, you'll have to reskill again. One of the key components, and I heard someone say this in a meeting, they said, Ron, he reads everything. And I'm like, where did you get that from? How did you make that assumption? They said, because you're always referencing articles. If you go to Harvard Business Review, PwC, Accenture, and register your email, you get all the stuff for free. If you want a deep dive, you're going to pay for it, but for free. All I need is free. I want to look to see what's happening across. And that's the beginning of the process that we think. We have to be able to be the ones that come into that bigger room and rock it. Here's what we found. In reviewing this, reviewing that, we found some discrepancies in this. There was a misalignment on this. And here's what we propose based on evidence. And they become the audience. They sit there and go, wow, are you folks workforce architects? Because I love this concept. But this is where the business is headed. And we can't change it because the train has already left the station and we have to drive that. So in closing, here's a concept. So the first slide said business strategy, people strategy. Here's how that works. If this is your org strategy, offer digital banking services in addition to traditional banking services, what role would you play as human resources in designing this? Every org has current to future. Think of future. Think of the industry. Think of your organization. How are you going to drive that? I need to know what each business does. I need to know what marketing's role is. I need to know what IT's role is. Operations. I need to understand every function from the people perspective. I did an offsite in Bangkok about a month ago, and we went through this full exercise. It was for a pharmaceutical company. And we walked every leader through this. That every one of your departments has to know what this is. Korn Ferry says that 85% of workers come in every day and they don't have a clue as to what this is. So imagine if you got your people to understand, here's what we have to do by 2023, 24. Here's marketing's piece, here's finance piece, here's so, and you go on and on. And then, what do? But the first slide says, we don't have a clue. So how can you design a strategic approach from talent if I don't know what a strategy is? That's the conundrum. We have to become business people thinking. Business first, but my specialty is HR. Those two letters, so here's what I've been noticing. Here's why companies are changing it from HR to people culture to all these kind of cool names. But you know what? If you don't change the model and the effectiveness of it, you can name it anything you want. It's still not going to make a difference. We have to become strategic people. And we have to drive that on our own. We can't expect, organizations send you out for a strategic HR BP course or whatever it is through Rajcom, whatever it is. But if 70-20-10, if you don't come back in and make that effective, you just took a course. And this is why the offerings that you folks offer, I don't know whether that's grammatically correct, but you know what I mean by that. Your offerings, we're going to have to take advantage of that. If you can't take advantage because of budget, you have to figure out a way. It's self-educated. Read everything you can read on our profession. Because here's what we do. If the revenue is down, and the CEO forms a task force to investigate recommendations, and they call in manufacturing, sales, finance, HR, what are you going to do? Come back in 2 weeks and give us a plan in the big room. What are you going to talk about in the big room? What is going to be your solution? What did you find? What evidence did you find to make sure revenue is down and how you can right that ship to get revenues back up again? So the onus is on us, and take these 2 days and do what you have to do, because we are, say that for me, everybody, workforce architects. That's Jesus Christ. Man, that was weak. That was weak. Try it over the next 2 days. We'll get it to work, folks. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Ron. It's a subject that I really like, which is basically, I call it the back room to the boardroom. And we all struggle trying to position, represent, project HR as somebody who has to have an equal, if not a more elevated place at the boardroom. But thank you so much for sharing with us as to what we need to do to be able to get there. Any questions for Ron on the subject? Please feel free. One of the other things that I wanted to say is that English is not my first language, so it is not for many of us here. So if you feel like talking or asking in Arabic, please feel free. We have plenty of people who can do the translation, and some will get lost in the translation, but that's the fun. So feel free. Any questions for Ron, please? Thank you so much. I think I've got, yeah, there is a mic if you want. Thanks, Niv.
experience and a bit of luck. But I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone here, or a lot of people here. How do we deal with those who, I mean, you repeatedly said that we are the only ones who know how to do this. But I've personally faced, and I'm sure others have too, people who, or let's say executives, people in the room.
Big shots.
Big shots, who seem to think that they know how to do what we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, you know, all the problems that come with that. So how do you deal with those?
Yeah.
And just maybe something for the room and for you as well. I think we are in the room more and more now than, more so now than before. Yeah. So this is something, I'm sure we've done something right, but that problem still remains.
So here's my thought on that. It's a marketing approach. How do we brand ourselves as solution providers, architects? I like to use those euphemisms because the more I use that, the more it kind of frames as to what I'm talking about. So the same way that I was on a flight with these so-called people, and I told them about that concept, some of them I kept in touch with. And some of them said, you know, everything you said was absolutely right, but my team does not have the ability to do that. So the advice I would give to a team is that it's kind of, you have to become a student of the industry you're in. You have to become a student of your industry. You must know every revenue stream, number one product that's flatlining, trending. You have to understand business acumen. And if you look at every research study that was done on the effectiveness of human resources, the number one issue is that we don't understand the business. So if you don't understand the business, what do you know? Can I sit with the CFO and have a discussion as to why the revenue was down? It could come from, I've had turnover in that department. It could come down to that the engagement level in that department, evidence-based, has been trending downward over the past 2-3 years. What's the cause of that? Can we find a solution to that? But one of the key points you have to remember, if you solve something, you're elevated. If you solve something, the brand changes. Do I have 2 minutes? Let me give you a story. So when the earnings call, publicly traded company, how many people that are in HR sit and listen to the earnings call? HR, look. Publicly traded company. All the financials, everything is being discussed. Do you understand the business side? Okay, if you're not publicly traded, if you are just working in an organization that's not publicly traded, do you sit in on a business meeting? Always be able from human resources, always be able to identify the challenges that your business is facing. Then you provide an evidence-based solution to that. We have to provide an evidence-based solution. So I say that to say the CFO was on an earnings call, and he said that our earnings were going to be challenged within the next period of whatever it was because of the fact that the TV industry was changing. It was going from analog to digital. What is the workforce implications for that? We didn't have people that were camera people that understood digital technology, which meant that we had to upskill, which also meant that we had to go out and buy 9 cameras, which was a huge expense, and all the implications from too. When I showed you the industry transitioning, we solved that. The HR department solved that. What did we do? We investigated the transformation of the industry. We went to the Ministry of Labor to ask them, can you provide us with data on this transformation? And they said, oh, by the way, we have funds for that. Which means that we'll help you get an interest-free loan. We'll give you a grant. The difference between a grant and a loan is that I don't have to pay it back. And we will allow you to transition analog people to digital people Finance, give us a workup on compensation schemes for analog camera people, digital camera people. We covered every basic point. And that next meeting, we were on the agenda, and people were sitting there on their phones, and they're saying, what does HR got to do with all of this? And they're on their phones. And we got up and we walked them through that. Jim said, here's what we did. We provided a solution, and we walked them through all of that. And at the end, I said, oh, by the way, I have a check here for $150,000. That's a grant that we don't have to pay back. Who do I give that to? And the room interrupted, and the applaud came in, and we never worried about being strategic anymore because people call us in to provide human capital solutions. So that was always the anchor. You solve something, you'll get the invite to the big room. Okay? Cool.
Any other questions for Ron? No worries. Thank you, Ron. Just 1 second. I have a small token of appreciation for you being here. Something for you to remember us by. Remember HRM Summit. And of course, remember our beautiful country of Bahrain.